What's important to know is that every business on the planet is exactly the same. Every business, whether it's a banana stand in Uruguay or a tech company in San Francisco, cannabis company in Florida, or a medical device company in Europe, they're all exactly the same. They start with people. They consume a certain amount of resources for which they can't pay for. And then they start generating revenue, hopefully. Then they can start paying for the resources they use.
Mike, welcome to Outsource to Profits. Do you mind telling the audience who you are, what you do, and then we'll cue it up for the topic of the week?
Sure. My name is Mike Moyer. I live in the Chicago area. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been starting companies for 25, 30 years. Today I run a couple of businesses. One's a software company that helps companies do equity splits, which we'll talk about. And I own a camping gear company called Mosquito Waste, which is a pop-up mosquito tents for Boy Scout camps and scouting camps. I also teach entrepreneurship at Northwestern University, and I do lectures all over the country on topics ranging from fair equity splits to presentation skills.
Well, we have to talk about your mosquito tents at the end because I spent my university's tree planting in northern Canada, and
Nice.
the bugs were the size of cats, and it was awful. So let's come back to that. So the topic of the week is around founder equity, and I had no idea that it's very similar. I actually put it akin to being in high school and you're about to go to university and you're very young, you're naive, you're 17 or 18 years old and you have no idea what you want to be in the future. Yet upon your 18th birthday, you were signing up for courses and you were forging a major for the future of your career. And this is why so many people bomb out in their first year of university, because they didn't realize the impact of those choices. Equity and partnership is very similar. And I'll tell a quick story. I've owned 3 agencies. In my first agency, I kind of fell into discovering a sales methodology called social selling. And in the creation of that agency, my business partner and I took 2 fledgling kind of 2 guys and a dog based agencies that were generalist agencies, and we put them together. Neither of us really had any meaningful revenue. And so it was told to us, well, that means that your equity needs to be 50-50. And I was told by that partner, well, that also means that our salaries need to be the same. Our dividends need to be the same, and everything needs to be the same. Yet, as we grew, I started to discover through mentorship, and there was this saying by a gentleman named Greg Alexander, that the owners of a professional services firm, the only 2 that should really own equity are those that make it rain, drive revenue, and or create unique intellectual property. And anybody else really doesn't provide the same economic or value creation to the agency. So over the years, while I have split equity, I've come to realize that salary is mutually exclusive and dividends are even mutually exclusive of equity ownership. So first question to you, it is going to be like a what or a how based question here. What is the single biggest rationale that people try to convince themselves as to why they're creating equity in the structures in the first place? And in your findings, part 2 is how destructive is that when they get that wrong? Like what percentage of businesses are you seeing falling apart because of those poor choices?
So the lie that people tell themselves is that equity creates incentives. So what equity does is it reflects incentive. It doesn't create incentive. So if I gave you Tesla stock, would you take it?
Sure.
Would you buy a Tesla? Maybe I don't know.
No, not at all, actually.
So you'll take the stock for free, right? It has no impact on who you are, what you're all about. Yeah. Now, if you believe in Tesla, will you buy the stock?
If I believed in it, yeah, of course.
Yes, but if you believe in it, you'll be willing to put something at risk in order to acquire the stock. If you don't believe in it, then who cares? Then you won't acquire it. But if someone gives it to you for free, you'll take it. No one turns down free equity. But the equity itself is not what's creating incentives. Your mission and vision and management and dreams of a profitable business creates the incentive, not the equity ownership. So what people do is they tend to base their equity split on future occurrences. Who's going to create the most intellectual property? Who's going to make it rain? Who's going to work the hardest? How much is the company going to be worth in 5 years? What percentage of that is going to come? All those things are nonsense because you can't predict the future. If you could predict the future, you wouldn't use equity. If you knew what the outcome was going to be, you'd only invest in things that you knew were going to work, and you do everything in your possible to maintain ownership.
You'd have the perfect company. Yeah.
You live in your parents' basement, you do whatever it took. So equity implies risk, and risk is taken by individuals in the form of paying for something by buying equity on the open markets or by foregoing salary and other quantifiable things. So people don't understand about business is that everything in business is quantifiable. That microphone you're using, did you buy it?
Yes.
You paid for it, right? That jacket you're wearing, did you buy it?
Yes.
You paid for it. You paid a fair market rate for it. Everything in business is quantifiable in terms of dollars and cents, in terms of fair market value. I can determine everything in fair market value. So I don't need to guess about the future because I know what's actually happening now. And what's happening now is what's important.
Interesting. Okay, so before we get into tactile processes and procedures to getting this right, let's maybe bring us back to the inflection point, the impetus of creation of a business. And we'll use two examples. You have those that want to create software companies. And my agency number 2 tried to get as close to the sun as possible. We were 2 non-technical founders trying to create either the ultimate productized service that is almost indistinguishable from software as a service, and or just become pure SaaS. How do you advise that relationship between non-technical founder and technical founder coming together? And then the same sort of scenario, maybe talk in part B, agencies, where you typically have people coming together that already have a series of customers. They're serving them in various different ways and sales motions and economic models, and they come together to form an agency. Maybe talk to them about day 0 before we get into all the other processes. What is the mindset that they need to come in to forging this properly?
So the first thing about a tech company or agencies, what's important to know is that every business on the planet is exactly the same. Every business, whether it's a banana stand in Uruguay or a tech company in San Francisco or a cannabis company in Florida or a medical device company in Europe, they're all exactly the same. They start with people. They consume a certain amount of resources for which they can't pay for. And then they start generating revenue, hopefully, and then they can start paying for the resources they use. And eventually, hopefully, they break even or raise money. And the goal of every business is to become self-sustaining, to stand on their own 2 feet. They do that by breaking even or raising money. So every business goal is to start at some point, the idea stage, whatever, do some stuff, and then stand on their own 2 feet and become a going concern. Agencies have a caveat in that there's building the business. The agency founders they're the founders of the business, and they're also the product of the business. So they provide services, which is the product of the service. So they're running their agency and they're providing services. It's still the same thing. It's just sometimes hard to separate the providing services to my client and running my business sometimes. But in all cases, they're still basically the exact same thing. There's also a point at which a company becomes valuable, means you're able to value it, versus when it's not valuable. So right now, you and I might have an idea on this phone call to have a single polarity magnet that can create infinite levels of energy for free. That's a great idea, right?
Yeah.
But there's no way to value it. There's no action. There's just an idea. There's no way to value that. If it could turn into something that's real, it could be worth thousands or trillions. But right now, there's no way to value it. If we had a prototype and customers and a business model, in place, then we could value it based on those things that are in place.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the pre-seed and the seed investors, venture capitalists, try to pontificate the millions of dollars of
Right.
potential value that in a pre-revenue business. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you got to have revenues or intellectual property or a customer base or some kind of revenue model that's valuable to someone. In most cases, companies are not valuable, which is not necessarily a bad place to be.
Okay, so now let's get tactile. What are without giving away your secret sauce, maybe you can describe it even at a high level, what are the processes that people need to go through, or you have a model for this, to doing this right day zero? And then perhaps can we recorrect what has already been done? So maybe option B, when we get to that, can you undo existing shareholders agreement and walk backwards and redo it using your model?
Yes. So I will give away the secret sauce. It's free for the world can use this idea for free forever. Now I do sell books and I do sell software, I do sell courses, all that stuff. But the concept is free because it's not very complicated. And yes, you can. It's called a retrofit. Most people who come to me have already made horrible mistakes in their equity split, and this can unwind it. If you have a legal agreement that gives you 50%, for instance, it's not fair. All you've done is give someone a legal right to be a dick. But if you are a dick, then you'll exercise your legal right to be a dick. If you're not a dick, then you'll change your mind and do slicing pie. So here's how it works. Do you know how to play blackjack?
Yeah, of course.
Let's pretend that you and I are going to play blackjack together as a team, not opponents, but as a team. And we're going to split the winnings 50-50 because we're friends. So we're going to fist bump on it.
Oh, yeah, boom, done. Yeah, there you go. Camera up here, yeah.
So we don't know if we're going to win. We don't know how much we're going to win. We don't know how long it's going to take to win. The future is unknowable. Now, we're playing as partners. We hope we're going to win. We're confident, but we don't know for sure. So we each put a chip on the same hand of blackjack. Now, the dealer deals 2 aces. That's good, right?
Yeah.
We're going to split them. Double down. Except I'm out of chips and you're not, so you put 2 more chips down. So now you bet 3 chips and I bet 1 chip. We still don't know if we're going to win or how much we're going to win or how long it's going to take to win. The future is
and we're using our own individual capital at this time. I'm just kind of
our own chips. We're playing on the same hand.
Yeah.
We don't know the future. What we know for certain, though, is you bet 3 and I bet 1.
Yeah.
If we win, does 50-50 sound fair?
Let me think about. Okay, so we both split, and then
We're
we've got
on the same hand.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it sounds fair.
But you bet 3 times as much as I did.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So I took more risk, saw the double down option. Oh, yeah.
You deserve 75% of the winnings. I deserve 25% of the winnings. Your share of the winnings should be based on your share of the bets.
Interesting. So I can see. Okay, so and of course, maybe I'm fast forwarding. So as a revenue driver, I am the rainmaker in my agency.
Hold that thought for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now, all we know about the game is we're betting on the same hand of card, play same game. Yeah. You bet 3 times as much as I did. The principle is your share of the winnings should reflect your share of the bets. Yeah. So a startup is the same thing, but instead of betting on cards, we're betting on ideas. And you bet time and money and facilities and supplies and equipment. And the value of your bet is always exactly equal to the fair market value of your contribution. So if you're a rainmaker, you deserve a commission, right?
Yep.
If I pay you your commission, you're not betting anything.
So I pulled it out. I pulled it off the balance sheet.
If you're not paid, it's a bet. So the unpaid portion of your fair market value. So if you're worth $25 an hour and I pay you $15 an hour, you are leaving $10 on the table. That's your bet. If you're generating sales, $1 million worth of sales at 10% commission, I pay you 10%. It's not a bet. If I don't pay you 10%, then you bet $100,000 on your unpaid commission. If you buy a computer mouse for the company for $30 and I don't reimburse you, you're betting $30. Everything is quantifiable. Whatever you bet is what you're not paid. And eventually the company can afford to pay you. And if I pay you for your contributions, it's not a bet. So if I just hired you and paid you your fair market rate, then you wouldn't deserve any equity because you're getting paid in full. If I don't pay you, then you're taking risk and you deserve equity.
So a quick question. Okay, so this makes total sense. We started at the beginning. I'll give you an example. Like at Levrg, we threw in $10,000 to get this thing going. So long of the short is, I see how then capital expenses and operational expenses, we were making bets exactly like you described. And we didn't take any income or salary to begin this. So we
Right.
began that journey together, flipping cards, playing this game. Now, that is really simple to quantify. You can see it in a P&L. You can see all the ledgers and expenses. How do you value? Oh, that was like the left side of the brain. Now we're on the right side of the brain. Ideas and intellectual property in that.
So I used to be the head of marketing at Plano Custom Molding. They make fishing tackle boxes.
Yeah.
And it was my job to invent new products. I invented new products that generated millions of dollars in income. That's intellectual property owned by the company. It was my job to create good ideas. I got paid a salary, and as long as I keep getting good ideas, I keep getting paid my salary. If I don't have good ideas, I lose my job. So your idea in itself isn't valuable unless it's baked, unless it's fixed in space in the form of a patent, a trademark, a copyright, or a trade secret. If I can license my idea, then the license is the market value. Markets establish value. If you can sell your idea, then it's the price you can sell it for is what it's worth. If you can't sell it, then it's either worthless or it's priceless, and it's probably worthless. So ideas without action, don't create much.
And as you're flipping your own salaries back into the business, so you're not, instead of, in lieu of salary, you're all playing this game. You're flipping cards back in and continue to play. As an organization, you each have to have your own roles. Somebody leads maybe marketing, somebody's leading the commercial conversations, somebody's leading service delivery or engineering. You're not then getting into the nuances. Well, a seller is worth more than an engineer.
Sure.
I assume.
You say your fair market salary. So have you ever had a real job before?
Long time ago. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life.
What was your last real job?
In my 20s, I was the VP of sales at a SaaS software company.
Did you own equity in the company?
Phantom options.
So they gave it to you as a gimme.
Yeah. They gave me the gift. The 1%.
They paid you a salary and they paid you a commission, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's your fair market salary. So whatever your skills and experience that adds up to that. If I want to work at McDonald's, the fair market salary is around $14.50 an hour.
Yeah.
If I'm a doctor and I work at McDonald's, my fair market salary is still $14.50. If I'm a doctor that does surgery, I'm worth a lot more than that. So it's a matter of the requirements of the job, your skills and experience, your connections, all that kind of stuff. So you establish your fair market value. Now, if you told me, Mike, I want to join your hamburger flipping stand, but I want $500,000 a year, I would say, gosh, that seems kind of high, Jamie. I bet I can hire somebody that can do just as good a job as you for less. So I'm going to negotiate your salary so I know what you're going to get into for free, for using rational things. You're not going to work for free forever, right?
No.
Eventually, you're going to want to get paid. That amount you're going to get paid is your fair market value. Now, if you've bet your fair market value, let's pretend that you and I are brothers, and our dad dies and leaves us his company. You want to work for the company, and I don't. But he leaves us 50% each.
This must come up a bunch.
Yeah,
yes,
so
in estate planning.
We each get 50% of the dividends, but you also get your fair market salary. And your fair market salary is the salary that you're paid to do your job. And if you don't want to work anymore, you can hire somebody else at your fair market salary, and you can join me on the beach.
Yeah.
So here's another example. If you went to work for Apple Computer tomorrow, and on your first day of work, they said, Jamie, good news. We found out that you own Apple Computer stock, so we're not going to pay your salary. What would you say?
Too bad, so sad.
That's stupid. There's no relationship at all between my ownership of Apple Computer and your salary. You get paid your salary. Yeah. Now, if I don't pay your salary, that's a bet. If I do pay your salary, you're paid in full.
Interesting. So looking at the time, 2 questions. So we want to get to the unwinding of what's been done, because I imagine most of the audience listening, they're in that predicament. But my brain kept thinking, how long do you play this betting game until the cap table needs to start solidifying itself into a normalized structure so that you could maybe you want to do a seed round. Maybe you're being approached by a private equity fund. And all of a sudden, like the cap table needs to actually start looking like a balance sheet rather than a fluid cash flow statement.
Definitely. So in slicing pie, I use a fictional unit of risk called a slice. The slice is like a poker chip. It just marks the fact that a bet took place. It's not worth anything. You can't take a poker chip down to McDonald's and buy a hamburger with it. It's not worth anything. It's only worth something in the game. So as you bet, as you're not paid, you accumulate slices of the pie. As the company gets cash, it can pay you, and the pie naturally stops accumulating slices. And eventually you won't need to use slices because you're all getting paid in full on a go-forward basis. This happens at break-even or Series A investment. Series A investment is someone who invests other people's money in amounts that are larger to fund your operation, so I can pay you now. So then the pie naturally stops accumulating slices, at which point you freeze it. If you're doing a retrofit, you go back in time, you say, what should I have been paid to date based on the work I did? Was I paid? If I was paid, then it's not a bet. If it wasn't paid, it's a bet. So retrofit is very common. In my book, Slicing by Hand, there's a whole chapter on retrofits, but it's very common. And it's an unbreakable model because I can't break it because I can't say I should have been paid more than I was paid. You agreed to your salary. That's your salary. If I want a raise, I can ask for a raise and get a raise. But no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work or how little you work or what changes, Slice by self-adjust to maintain fairness until you such point as you're paid going forward.
This has been fantastic. Mike, how do people get a hold of you? I think you mentioned you have a book. Talk to you on LinkedIn. What are your avenues of communication?
Slicingpie.com, SLICINGPIE, slicingpie.com is access to my book. Or you search Mike Moyer, Fair Equity Splits, it'll come up. This model's been used the past 10 or 15 years by companies all over the world. Never once have I heard it fail to create a fair equity split, where I have estimates that 90% of businesses run into equity split issues, and often they're insurmountable. Because if you think you deserve 25%, I think you deserve 10%, there's going to be a fight. But Slicify always tells us the right answer.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on Outsource to Profits.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Thank you.